Sheila, great to have you back on the show. I do want to get your reaction to the Deputy Treasury Secretary. And we're hearing a lot of this talk about countering sanctions and keeping an eye on Russians where cryptocurrency assets are concerned. Are we actually seeing actions on the ground in Russia that would be using cryptocurrencies to evade sanctions?
Hey, good morning, Morgan. We're not. It's really interesting to see this rhetoric coming out of Washington right now, because there really isn't evidence that anybody in Russia is using crypto to evade sanctions or for illicit purposes. If anything, the evidence is quite strongly in the other direction, that the Ukrainians are using crypto to basically fund humanitarian assistance and really crowdfund essentially their defense in this situation.
Why has this become such a talking point then, at least among politicians? I mean, is this a situation where you have current or former employees of a centralized government who are just in general critical right now, or maybe misinformed on something that is a decentralized platform?
Well, I'm not here to speak to motivations necessarily, but I do think that there are folks who have been looking for a way to vilify crypto, and this is serving as something that they can talk about that gets a lot of hits, right? So nobody wants to be on the wrong side of this crisis. Nobody wants to be supporting illicit activity. That's certainly true for the crypto industry. But where these allegations are made, even though the data doesn't prove it, anything like this is happening, they become they become a talking point, right? So. Again, not to speak to motivations of anyone, but I do find it very interesting given the actual evidence of what's happening.
Yeah. Meantime, I mean, the action we've seen in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies in recent weeks, I guess, what would you chalk that up to? And does it speak to the fact that what we're seeing play out on the ground in Eastern Europe right now is perhaps offering a real-time, real-life use case for some of these assets?
I think that's exactly right. I think we had the Ukrainian president and ministers in the government themselves calling this an economic breakthrough in this situation. I mean, I don't know what more validation you need of the incredible utility of this particular asset class during times of crisis, which is something I think that as people in the community have always been saying in the crypto industry, like what happens when things go off the rails? Well, now we're seeing it, and we're seeing that this is a truly necessary part of putting up a defense.
It's certainly the use cases, I guess, both good and bad, seem to have turned some heads, I would argue, in the last couple of weeks. I'm thinking about Larry Fink's letter to shareholders in recent weeks, just arguing that it's probably accelerated the use, and the industry is going to count on those nefarious means being held in check by regulation somehow, right?
Well, I think that's right. I think there's a lot of self-regulation happening here. And so it's really important for anyone who watched the recent hearing. It's really important to understand how much information and activity is already happening in the industry to ensure that these kind of illicit activities aren't able to, they can't be done. And so whether it's blockchain analytics firms, whether it's track and trace that you can do using blockchain technology, we're in a world where, we almost say like, look, come and try it because we're going to catch you and the industry is going to catch you. So I do think that that's right. I think that there's a lot of understanding now that when it comes to the different use cases, here's one that's just kind of blown up and shown tremendous value. But it's not the first time. We've seen this happening in other parts of the world. It's just that the Ukraine-Russia crisis is so acute here, right, that it's getting a lot more airplay than other instances.
Yeah. I wonder if I had asked you, Sheila, a year ago, if we would have had an executive order from the White House, the likes of which we had the last couple of weeks, if we would have the IRS basically bake in income pretty seamlessly into tax filing, the SEC guidance on crypto getting a little more granular. Has that happened faster or slower than you would have thought?
I'm an eternal optimist, so I would have said, sure, let's hope for the best, right? But even I, with that frame, I was very pleasantly surprised. I think it's impossible at this point in time after this PO to have a black and white conversation about this space anymore. Everyone now understands there's a lot of nuance. It's complicated. We have to be very thoughtful. We have to make sure that we're creating a consistent framework for the industry to build, but also making sure that we're protecting innovation going forward for future generations. So I'm thrilled by what's happened here, but would I have predicted it? Probably not.